Hello and welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Thank you for joining me today. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a sit-up and give you my top tips on how to do a really effective sit-up. So very, very different to the kind of sit-up that you might see people doing in the gym environment, which is a big whole body movement where you might be coming all the way up to sitting, coming all the way back down again, that sort of movement. The problem with that sort of sit-up is that the belly sticks out and hardens. It does this sort of doming type movement where it pushes forwards a little. And what that does, whilst we're training the superficial abdominals fine with that kind of sit up, we're also training the neck and we're training the front of the thighs and the front of the hips. So it's not particularly efficient. And what it really misses, that type of sit up, is the work of the deep abdominals. So the deep abdominals wrap around the spine a little bit like a corset, and they suck in to the spine to protect it, to support it and prevent injury. They're really, really important. And if your abdominals are doming, they're popping out and creating that little rounded shape, then you absolutely know that your deep abdominals have not switched on. So what we want to make sure we do is flatten the belly while we're doing our sit-ups so that we're strengthening that core. You might have heard of the expression core stability or core strength. And that comes not from doing a big movement necessarily, but by doing a really precise, efficient movement where the belly is flattening so that we can be sure we're keeping the spine absolutely safe. So if we lie onto our backs, the first thing is that you want to support the head. So I'm going to interlace the hands fully and place them behind the head. We don't want to be here or here because that trains the neck. The idea is because your head is so very heavy, the more you can let the weight of the head drop into the hands, the heavier that head becomes into your hands, the more that's going to make the abdominals do the work of lifting that load. So you want to keep the head heavy and the neck as relaxed as possible. That's the first thing. So keeping the chin down, not looking at the ceiling, but looking down towards your body as you come up. The second thing is elbow position and shoulder blade position. So if your elbows are wide here, which I've seen on some occasions, the problem with that is your shoulder blades then narrow towards each other and that blocks the movement of the spine, makes it less efficient. So we want to keep the elbows forwards so that the shoulder blades can widen and we feel like the shoulder blades are traveling forwards around the side of the rib cage and towards the navel. So there's this gliding action of the shoulder blade forwards on a diagonal round the ribs towards the front of the body. So then the third thing is not to lift up out of the floor, but instead to roll down into the floor. So you could perhaps imagine yourself like a heavy tractor tire rolling through the mud. You want to feel like you're rolling one piece at a time, one vertebra at a time, down through the floor to come up into that little sit-up. And then the fourth thing is to be aware of your pelvis. Now you don't want your pelvis to tilt like that. So you don't want to use your bottom or your thighs or your hip flexors at the front of the hip here. You want to keep your legs relaxed and you want to keep your pelvis completely heavy. What we'd call in a Pilates context, a neutral pelvis, just letting it relax. So as you curl forwards, your back will flatten into the floor, but because of the work you're doing through the abdomen, not because of the tilt of the pelvis. So keep that tail dropped down, keep the legs relaxed and just roll forwards as high as you possibly can without the legs or the hips joining in. So then I get to that fifth point, which I mentioned before, the all important detail of flattening the belly. So you don't want your belly sticking out like this. You want to use your out breath to suck it flat against the spine. So once you've come up into your sit up, you can take a couple of breaths there, letting go a little bit with your belly as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, you want to feel a little bit of lift through the pelvic floor and that flattening of the lowest part of the abdomen downwards towards the spine. So we can stay up there for 2 or 3 breaths, doesn't matter how long we're there. Breathing out through the mouth, breathing in through the nose, and then sucking the belly in as we exhale. So quite a lot to think about. I appreciate there's a lot of different details there, but I hope that was useful. That's my 5 top tips for helping you to do a really efficient abdominal curl. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you can make it next Wednesday at 1 o'clock.